Hello, everybody, to the first episode of, I guess, this masterclass that I'll be ushering you through in order to learn how to better become a Tyranid player in Warhammer 40,000. 10th edition has been a great resurgence of players new and old. Um, I personally, just a little background for myself, I've been collecting and playing with Tyranids since 2010. I did originally start with Space Marines in 2008, and it kind of just got a little bland for me. I wanted something that was a little more visually striking and something I could kind of wrap my head around the lore, but a little bit better. I have not personally gone to a whole lot of RTTs or GTs. I've participated in a few. I would kind of rate myself as um, a player who likes to play 7 or 8 out of 10 on a competitive scale. Um, I like forwarding the hobby and integrating new people and expanding the space and making it something that's more of a social event for people rather than something to up their win rate. Winning is great. Uh, we all love that. But I think another one of these episodes will probably be on just, etiquette and winning and losing like a gentleman or a gentle lady. Going from the top down in sort of the flow of the suggestions that I got from people on the Tyranny Discord. Um, I guess it's not really something I think about because I've done it hundreds of times, but going from step one of mustering your army, choosing your units, you don't have to worry too much about smashing someone's face in or, dumpstering somebody on the tabletop because a lot of the armies now are able to effectively play the game with tactical objectives and with all maps now have 5 objectives, with the exception of one mission that does spawn a 6th objective, or if you're playing the ritual or something like that. But we're going under the assumption going forward that the majority of your games, 85 to 87.5% of your games, are going to have 5 objectives. And so mustering your army and choosing your units and building your lists. I know originally I said in the banner I wasn't going to go over list building, but I don't think it's a fair shake to newer players or returning players who might have been coming from something like 5th or 7th edition, where the biggest, strongest thing, the thing that could kill faster and survive, was kind of how you built your list. And now that's not what you do. I think you kind of have utility units, you have strikers, you have things that are pawns that are going to go off and they're going to sacrifice themselves, and you trade those points in your list for victory points on the score sheet. Um, you have your hammers and you have your anvils. Tyranids, in general, are not super survivable this edition. There are some units that go above and beyond doing that, and we'll discuss that. But I think the first thing to go over first is just my opinion on the strength of units in a tier list. Okay, so this is a tier list that I've made. Funny enough, a long time ago, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, I made this tier list on TierMaker um, just to help me visualize which units kind of help even out the competitiveness of a list. If I'm going to be playing, somebody who's never played the game before, and I want to show them and introduce them to the game, I'd probably be bringing in a lot of B and C tier units in the list composition just to show them some fun interactions. But they're not units that are going to survive every single attack that they throw at me. Um, on the flip side, if I'm trying to prepare a more competitive list for a GT or an RTT, the majority of the units that I'm going to be using in my list are going to be S and A tier units. There might be a B tier unit sprinkled in there as a utility or a tech piece, but I can tell you that one of my better lists right now with the Invasion High Fleet, which is just kind of an easy thing to pick up and go. It's a great all-rounder, and I'm very practiced with it. I've probably used it 20 of the 30 games that I've played in 10th edition. So for people who don't have the pattern recognition and they're new and they don't know the units, I'm just going to do a quick and dirty rundown, starting in the S tier. So we have the Biovore, the Death Leaper, the Neurolictor, the Exocrine, Gargoyles, Rippers, Maleceptor, Walking Hive Tyrant, Pyrovore, Zoanthropes, Haruspex, Neurotyrant, Ravners, Old One Eye, Tyranifex. I prefer the Rupture Cannon, but I think the Flamer option is also around there. People don't really consider the Fleshboar Hive, and I'm not here. The Winged Hive Tyrant, uh, Melee Warriors, the Norn Emissary with the 4-up invuln, the Barbgaunts, Screamer Killer, Lictor, Carnifexes, Trigons, the Norn Assimilator, the uh, Broodlord. Sorry, I was looking at a different unit. I got two names mixed up. Gene Stealers, Hormagaunts, Termagants, Neurogants, Flying Hive Tyrant, Von Ryan's Leapers. I know it's a Legends unit, but I like playing it in some games. The Dimakaran, the Swarmlord, Tyrant Guard, Turvagon, Ranged Warriors, the Parasite and Mortrex, Venomthropes, I was blanking for a second, the Barbed Hybridule, the shooting variant, the Scythe Hybridule, the melee variant, Psychophage, Toxicrin, Moloch, Harridan, Hiveguard, and some of these in F tier list are something that at this point in time, the points make no sense. I would probably never take them, or they're Legends units, and I don't particularly have an affinity to use the model. So this is the Harpy, the Tyrannocyte, the Hive Prone, Stonecrusher Carnifexes, Sporocyst, the Hierophant, all of your different spore mines. So the meiotic spores, the mycetic spores, spore mines, and then last of all, we have the Allanthrope. So those are the units. This is semi-subjective. I think the majority of people would agree with the placement of these things, but this is fluid. I keep this up on another tab, and after watching battle reports or things like that, this will shift. I'll sometimes change this 4 or 5 times a day. I'll shift units up or down. In the index, I originally put Gargoyles in S tier because at that point they were our best battle line. But S tier for me are auto takes. They're essentially in every list just because of cost, their utility, and their scoring potential. A tier is the meat and bones of the rest of the list. I guess if I were to go over unit compositions of uh, a mock list, I'll bring up a list that I've written recently that kind of min-maxes the best of what I feel an invasion fleet can bring right now, and just an iteration of something I'm comfortable with. All right, so here is an example of an invasion style list. It's the one that came out in the index. It's the one I'm most practiced with. I've played about 20 of my 30 games of 10th edition with it. So I feel like it's a really good catch-all, all-rounder. All the stratagems benefit a multitude of units here, and it allows you to be a lot more flexible in your gameplay. After talking about the list here, I can go over sort of the unit compositions and sort of what I use these units for when I play the game. The relative ease now in 10th edition of list building opens up a lot more possibilities. Now, your only restrictions now are that you need one leader. I usually go with a walking hive tyrant. A maximum of one epic hero. Death Leaper does count. He's only 70 points, and his rules are really great. He allows you to farm back CP. He forces battle shocks on anything that is below starting strength at -1. He and some other units on an objective can wrangle away an objective from something that's lightly guarded that normally you wouldn't be able to. Additionally, for mustering your army and picking units, you can have up to 3 of any same data sheet. That's why I have 3 Maleceptors and 3 Exocrines here. They're just extremely efficient, very strong. Maleceptors are T11, 14 wounds, 4 up invuln. Their survivability is incredible. I would almost say they're a defensive unit that has some awesome shooting. Their melee is paltry. It'll take down some lightly defended units, but I don't really count on it for anything. 2 of them on an objective can usually outlast most things, unless somebody is pulling back a unit to fire back at them. And then last but not least, you're allowed up to 6 of the same battle line. So troops in 9th edition are now battle lines. So Gargoyles, Hormagaunts, Termagants, and Neurogants are all battle line. I don't think I'm missing any there, but if I am, any troops that historically would have been under that category are now battle line. So this list composition, the linchpin of it all is the Hive Tyrant. The Hive Tyrant has a commander ability that allows you to use a battle tactic for free, even if you've used it once for 0 CP. The sequencing of that is that you have to pay a command point for it first. So if you wanted to do 2 rerolls in the same phase, you could spend a command point for a reroll. Let's say it's a number of shots on one of your Maleceptors or Exocrines. And then if there's a a wound roll or something that's really important, or a save roll, the targeted unit that is making the save, as long as they're within 12 inches of the hive tyrant, he can give you a free reroll again, because CP reroll is a battle tactic. The gargoyles I have here on the list are primarily pawns. They're something I'm going to trade away. I don't expect their survivability. If they make some saves, that's great. And you can kind of play with that as the game evolves. But more often than not, I might start one unit on the board somewhere and fly them forward, because they have assault weapons. You can advance them and they can still shoot. And after they shoot, they have a special ability that allows them to move 6 inches. It's not D6, it's 6. So they have a maximum potential movement of 24 inches every turn. That allows you to jump large gaps to other pieces of terrain and cover. And potentially in the first movement phase allows you to go from your backfield to a midfield objective if it's well hidden by a piece of terrain. The Death Leaper here is also just a tech unit. He's got some pretty good stats. 6 attacks sitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2 for 2. Does have precision. Sometimes I'll use him to go hunt down minor characters if I need extra CP. Keeping him alive is mostly contingent on you only going after things that are smaller than him. I think he lasted something like 5 or 6 rounds of combat against Necron warriors the last game I played. They did 3 wounds to him, and some of that was just bad rolling because they had no AP on their weapons, and he does have a 3-up save now. Neurolictors, I've dropped down from 3 to 2, partially because I don't think I've mastered how to use them yet. And I use them to buddy up, and I put them forward deployed so that their 12-inch aura covers the center objective. That way, if I don't get first turn, and my enemy, knowing if that the game is contingent on kind of controlling the midboard, it's just like chess, they're going to have to move on to that center objective. I want to have my aura extend over the far edge of the objective so that on my preceding turn, I can force them to make 2 battle shock tests. Taking away OC, that's great. Their other ability is that if they're battle shocked and a Neurolictor's within 12 inches, they're -1 to hit, and we're +1 to wound them. So if you have +1 to wound on something, it makes it a lot easier from an efficiency standpoint to think that's the thing that I should take off the board. That's the thing I should focus on, unless it's something that you can take out without using the majority of the firepower of your army. Maliceptors are, like I said, incredible defense, some really solid shooting. They're D6 plus 3 shots each with blast. They're strength 10, AP 2 for 3 damage each. They have a 6-inch aura of encephalitic diffusion, which makes it so that any enemy unit within 6 inches is -1 to hit if they're below starting strength. So even if a squad of 20 Necron warriors has lost 1 of them, they're now -1 to hit. And if they're below half strength, they are -1 to wound. Incredible synergy. You potentially can get to the point where even if something has the ability to gain +1 to hit, the Neurolictor and the Maliceptor take that away. The Pyrivore is super cheap. It's something that, depending, might just be something I stick in a corner and scores investigate signals, or stays on the back line and I wait for an opportunity to jump forward, because the Flamer's only 12 inches and I have a really hard time kind of getting him in range to shoot something, because his special ability, if you target a unit with his flamethrower, it strips cover. Super good against marine equivalent units, or a stubborn vehicle that has a 2-up armor and is stuck behind cover. It effectively is a shadow additional pip of AP. The Raveners I kind of treat as gargoyles that are also strikers. The squad of 3 has 21 attacks, strength 5, AP 1 for 1 damage, twin linked. So against Marines, I'm pretty sure on average they can pretty effectively kill 4 or 5 Marines without invulns. So they're something really good. They're also fast. They move 10 inches. There's something that I usually save a CP for if I want to reroll a charge to get into something. And the twin linked makes it super good into anything T9 or lower, because as soon as you hit that T10, you don't want to be wounding out 6s and then twin linked fishing for 6s. You at least want to be wounding on 5s. So T9 is kind of your break point for things that you can kind of send them after to just chip wounds off of. Their special ability allows them to burrow at the end of the enemy's I think it's at the end of the enemy's turn. So on turn 1, if your opponent gets first turn and you have them on the board, at the end of their turn, they go into strategic reserves. Since they started on the board per the FAQ, they now are allowed to come in on your turn 1, the bottom of turn 1. Which gives them essentially turn 1 deep strike if you want. So this is great that if on first turn you draw investigate signals behind enemy lines, engage in all fronts, and you need a unit or 2 more in the back line other than what the Biovore can do. He can seed a Spore Mine, and the Spore Mine counts as a spawn unit and can score. The Zoanthropes at this point, I see a lot of discourse about people liking them less and less. Yeah, their points went up, and I think just there's a little bit of power creep in their effectiveness because having 3 last cannon shots or 3 D3 blast shots that are strength 7 AP2 for D3 can be kind of swingy. But these at this point, because their movement is so low, they move 5 inches and the range is 24. I think of depending on the deployment type, if in 1 or 2 turns I can't get anywhere with 29 to 34 inches, they're better reserving. They're better, getting out of the way, allowing your Maleceptors and your Exocrines to move, and finding strategic opportunities to come in from board edges and have firing lines that you didn't have before. I think the army that I've played against most of this edition is Necrons. One of my sparring partners here in Kansas does play Necrons primarily. So I think something like 1/3 or 40% of my games have been against Necrons. So that's my greatest experience thus far. Exocrines are super efficient. They're 135 points. They're T10. They have 14 wounds. If you stick them next to a squad of Zoanthropes, they have a 6-up invuln, so they can't get absolutely melted to death. Anything AP4, AP5 out in the open is going to be a problem for them, but usually now with the cover rules, you're allowed to tuck in a part of them so that you can't see the whole of the unit, and they're going to have cover. But just like the Maleceptors, they have D6 plus 3 blast shots, strength 8, AP3 for 3. These are your Terminator killers. These are your anything elite infantry or less. Maybe light vehicles. You could. I haven't played Dark Eldar yet, or I've only played Eldar once. But if they have light vehicles that are T6, 7, or 8, those are all pretty good targets for the Exocrine. The good thing with Invasion is that one of your hyper adaptives is either lethal hits on vehicles or monsters, or sustained hits on infantry and swarms. So depending on who you're playing or what you're playing, if they've got a bunch of vehicles that are high toughness, and you're looking at your list and there's not much you can do against that, you can increase your damage output massively by taking lethal hits against those vehicles if you know that you have the tools to deal with their infantry. Alternatively, if you're playing against something like Custodes, and 90% of their list is infantry, it probably would be a miss if you didn't take those sustained hits, because 90% of the time you're going to be gaining extra value out of shooting them or hitting them in melee. If there's something that I haven't particularly covered or I brushed over or that could be expanded upon, go ahead and hit me up in the comments or on Discord. My username in Discord is Talthor. Yeah, I just want to keep the line of communication open. I want this to be quick, dirty, and easy. I want it to be, I heard some people talk about how a lot of Tactica and some of the resources that they could have at their disposal are hidden behind paywalls, or they have to have a monthly subscription to. I don't need your guys' money. I like having the hobby grow. I like creating a community. I like that the Tyranid Discord feels like a true hive mind, and we can have heated or collaborative discussions on things, and we really titrate down and help each other figure out what is best for your play style or your model count or model composition. One of the things I'll probably be going over in another video is terrain placement before unit placement, because I think if it doesn't matter how good your list is, if you're on a board with no terrain, at that point it becomes who rolls first, who has the best guns, and who can shoot the furthest. If you want to talk about it in the Discord or in the YouTube comments, I'm more than open to suggestions or on things to kind of talk about and amend in the future, but this is just the first episode in the series. So thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you later on High Fleet Prometheus.